Today we're going to be having doing a talk about, a talk from two recent graduates from UEA about what they're currently doing in their careers at the moment. So just a few housekeeping things, health and safety wise. If you needed assistance, please see either me or Berna for that. And fire procedures, we are hoping there is not a drill scheduled and we are not aware of any. So if you do hear a fire alarm, please just leave and follow the emergency exit signs. These are just some reasons why you should become an RMETS member. You get your print and online copy of the monthly in-house journal Weather, free online access to all full journal portfolios of 8 titles, including the Quarterly Journal of Royal Meteorological Society and the International Journal of Climatology. You get exclusive monthly members newsletters with latest news and events from the Society, and you also get discounts at conferences and paid for meetings, as well as access to support grants. There's the website if you would like to join, if you are not already a member. And for those who are members and are working in the meteorological industry, the RMETS do give away accreditations. They do have 2 types of accreditation systems. They have the chartered meteorologist and the registered meteorologist. The chartered is for people that have been in the meteorology sector for quite some time. Registered is fairly new to the industry, but around 3 to 5 years of career experience in meteorology sectors. Both are quite useful to have. But yeah, I'll hand over to first speaker, which is Emma.
Today I'm going to speak to you about me, and then I'm going to speak to you about the North East area where I work, and then my role and incident management at the Environment Agency. So a bit about me. I graduated from University of East Anglia in summer of 2023 after studying a BSc in Environmental Science. After my graduation, I relocated to Newcastle after securing a position at the Environment Agency as part of the Environment and Science grad scheme. Within the EA, I work as a flood risk officer within the Flood and Coastal Risk Management Operations Department in the North East area. In this position, I work with lead local flood authorities to better manage flood risks affecting local people and build resilient communities. The skills I developed during my uni studies have been instrumental in supporting my transition into this role. I also am working towards my achieving chartership with Chartered Institute of Water and Environmental Management. So how did I get here? After finishing school, I knew I wanted to go to uni, but I wasn't sure what to study. I had an interest in environmental law, which grew after doing a mini pupillage in London, where we reviewed a case on land contamination, which made me want to understand how the law protects the environment. But then I decided to go into environmental science instead, where I focused on the weather, climate change, science and policy, and land and water management. I also built skills in GIS, which have been helpful in my day job. For my dissertation, I focused on investigating the influence of meteorological variables and wider implications of climate change on future wildfires in southeastern Australia. In the summer after finishing uni, I also did a little bit at WeatherQuest, which gave me hands-on experience in the environmental sector. So I worked alongside the forecasters and helped produce European and UK weather forecasts for newspapers like the UK Times, International Times and Eastern Daily Press. It was a great experience to build skills in forecasting and analysing meteorological data, but also to understand how to communicate weather information effectively to the public. It really helped motivate me to apply my degree in my future career, but I realised the hours of a weather forecaster and wanted a 9-to-5 job. So during my final year, I applied for the grad scheme at the Environment Agency on the off chance I might be successful, and was offered my current position in July 2023 and started in October 2023 in Newcastle. So what inspired me to pursue a career in the public sector? I wanted to make a real difference, putting people and the environment at the centre of my job. While at university, the Environment Agency was mentioned frequently, which sparked an interest in how it works, the impact it has, and more importantly, where I could see myself contributing within it. The grad scheme at the EA is highly regarded within the industry and offers exceptional opportunities for professional growth. The scheme is also accredited by SciWem, which helps with my continuous development and has a clear pathway towards chartership status. The Environment Agency also collaborates with a wide range of stakeholders and organisations to drive environmental protection, flood management, pollution control and biodiversity conservation across England. Since working at the Environment Agency, it's been clear that there's a real commitment to protecting communities, strengthening resilience against flooding and ensuring the environment is protected for future generations. So now I'll go on to speak about the North East area and kind of where I sit in the flood and coastal risk management. So nationally, between 2021 to 2027, the government has invested $5.2 billion into a 6-year flood and coastal risk management programme. The programme aims to reduce the risk of flooding from rivers, sea, groundwater or surface water, and to reduce the risk from coastal erosion. With this investment, they aim to protect 336,000 homes nationally across 2,000 new defence schemes, but this has now been reduced to 200,000 homes across 1,500 schemes. So this slide is just to highlight the key roles and responsibilities of the organisation involved in flood risk management across England. Essentially, it's about understanding who does what when it comes to managing flood risk and protecting communities and keeping the environment safe. So DEFRA have the overall national responsibility for policy and national funding, and the RFCC is responsible for managing flood and coastal erosion across catchments and provides the links between risk management authorities and other bodies. At a high level, the Environment Agency is responsible for taking a strategic overview of all sources of flooding, but each of the RMAs has a different responsibility. So the EA's operational responsibility for managing flood risk is from main rivers, reservoirs, estuaries and the sea, and they also lead on capital projects. So the lead local flood authorities, which is who I work with, are responsible for the local flood risk management and lead responsibility for managing the risk of flooding from surface water, groundwater and ordinary water sources. Yes, this is the North East area, if you didn't know where it is. And it highlights the councils that are in the area. So the new National Flood Risk Assessment maps provide a current picture of the future flood risk from rivers, the sea and surface water for England. The latest update shows that around 6.3 million properties in England are in areas at risk of flooding from one or more sources of flooding. The North East Area Capital Programme is made up of lots of different aspects, including modelling and forecasting to better understand flood risk, hydrology and telemetry network to support monitoring and flood warning, asset reconditioning of existing EA flood assets, and resource costs to help support delivery of schemes. The main area we invest in is our defence schemes, which are schemes that directly better protect houses from flooding. These schemes can be delivered by either the Environment Agency or other risk management authorities. In 25-26, the North East area will invest $35.8 million in projects to better protect communities from flooding and coastal erosion and commit a further $3.28 million for maintenance of our existing assets. This will improve the standard of protection to at least 500 properties. So then this is a bit about my role and what I do within the Environment Agency. So I work with risk management authorities, which are like local councils, to develop schemes on the flood risk management programme. As discussed previously, this is the Environment Agency's commitment to reduce flood risk. For local authorities to implement flood risk management schemes, they have to apply for government grants throughout projects which focus on either a perceived or observed risk. Surface water flooding is identified using the National Flood Risk Assessment maps and or based on historic or recent reports of flooding. So the focus of my role is to support these local authorities in their funding applications for their schemes. So for example, I will produce a high-level desktop study report for initial funding where they can go and do site surveys and model development to assess the vulnerability of the areas at risk and suggest potential solutions. I'll then help write business cases on behalf of the local authority, which helps to move projects from concept to construction. This is done by evaluating potential solutions to better manage flood risk in the area and justify the chosen solution as the most economically viable. And then this is based on modelled results, flood damages, and the cost of the preferred solution. So on a weekly basis, I meet with the local authorities to discuss the scheme progressions and the capital grant management. A lot of the time, I'm in spreadsheets, coordinating data across the North East area to ensure it aligns with the National Flood Risk Programme. It also involves reporting potential risks and opportunities to the programme based on the local knowledge that we've gained. Another part of the role is project assurance. So when we get a business case in, we have to be confident that the evidence provided will deliver the desired outcome, as in better protect the properties. And then we approve the funding for the scheme to go ahead. And then we go and visit the sites, essentially, and shadow other teams where we assess the condition of current assets, for example, Spring Gardens Dam in Durham. So moving on, this is a little bit about the incident management at the Environment Agency. We all in flood risk have to have an incident management role. We work collectively across our teams and with customers and stakeholders to respond to flood and environmental incidents, issue flood warnings, and work with partners to protect communities and the environment. So our role is responding to incidents that pose an increasing threat to communities and the natural environment. The three main incidents include fluvial flooding, coastal flooding, and marine pollution. When major incidents occur, it is vital that the Environment Agency thinks big and acts early to ensure the best outcome for people and the environment. We are also Category 1 responders, which places incident planning, response and recovery obligations on us in relation to carrying out the rest of our functions under existing legislation. The Environment Agency also implements a risk-based approach to prevent, prepare for, respond to, recover from and learn lessons from the incidents. We receive over 100,000 incident reports a year, every one of which is recorded and assessed. We categorise incidents 1 to 4, with Category 1 having a major impact and Category 4 having no impact. It depends on the nature of the incident, depends on what advice we'd give, whether it's general or regulatory advice, environmental data, public warnings and information, or an operational response. So this shows some of the incidents that we investigate. So just for example, to name a few: water pollution, fish kills, waste fires, wildfires, contaminated land. But the main incident we respond to is flooding. So the Environment Agency provides a flood warning service, and we use it to distribute our alerts and warning messages when there is a risk of flooding. Communication is vital in incident response. The EA flood warnings are issued for main rivers and coastal and tidal flooding only. The Environment Agency gathers real-time hydrological data from monitoring stations across England, and this includes river levels, groundwater readings, rainfall measurements and flow rates. We also get forecasts from sources like the Met Office to help predict these extreme weather events. So an alert will be sent when the rivers reach a certain level, and you can either get a flood alert, a flood warning, or a severe flood warning. It's a free service for the public, staff, partners to sign up to. This slide also shows an example of an alert that we had out in the River Coquette near Rothbury. Essentially, all the orange parts on the map are where, if they'd signed up for the flood warning system, they would have received an alert that the river levels would get higher. And then the image to the right shows the government website where you can go and see the alerts and warnings in force across the country, but it wasn't taken from today. As part of the EA's incident management, we are also constantly improving our flood warning service based on new flood defence schemes, post-event flood data and new flood modelling. These are the alerts and warnings that get sent out as part of the flood warning service. So the flood alerts cover big areas and will be issued more frequently. However, they're only issued in waking hours and get updated every 12 hours. The message is to stay alert, stay vigilant, and make early preparations. Flooding may also occur to low-lying land, riverside footpaths and roads. The flood warnings are issued when the first property is expected to flood within a flood warning area. Here, the residents must take action to protect life and property and use their community and personal flood plans. We usually have community resilient officers who go out and support them as well. Flooding of homes and businesses is expected here, and these can be issued 24/7. They're also far more specific and targeted at certain areas. A severe flood warning are issued to warn of significant risk to life or significant disruption to the community, but these are reserved for exceptional flooding situations. To finish, I thought I'd share a photo from Storm Desmond in December 2015 at Corbridge in Northumberland. It just shows the importance of the work we do and why. It is important that we send out those flood warning alerts so communities know these events are coming and they can protect themselves. We provide a service so communities can prepare, act and survive.
Well, I think it was more from the perspective of, so thinking about students who are university students who are graduating soon, you obviously work for the North East Centre. How many centres are there like yours in England, roughly? I don't know.
I don't know off the top of my head, but they are everywhere in England.
Like, do you guys tend to recruit on sort of an annual basis, or is it kind of as and when it's needed?
I think it comes out in April time, and there's usually between 40 and 20 graduates that are recruited each year, but they could be across England. Like, I just got put in the North East because the flooding's not worse there, but it's quite flat here, and the North East is quite hilly. So they needed flood risk officers there, but then there's different, like you could be a permitting officer, you can do planning. There's so many different areas that you could go into. It's just, I went into flood risk.
Brilliant.
Hello everyone, my name is Amelia Weatherall, and I'm going to talk to you about my role at Brown & Co as an agricultural environmental consultant, which is a bit of a mouthful, but yeah. So how did I become an agri-environmental consultant? I studied environmental science with Emma from 2020 to 2023, and I focused predominantly on meteorological processes, renewable energy and water and land management. We were able to specify our degree to what really interested us, and that was what interested me. As part of my degree, we went to the Lake District, where I truly discovered my interest in meteorology. I found it really interesting to see how everything was set up, and I took that into my dissertation, where I focused on detecting sea breezes on the North Lincolnshire coast, which is where my hometown is. In my third year of my BSc, I applied for a summer internship at Brown & Co using the career service here at UEA, and there wasn't actually much of a description as to what this role was, but I looked online and I thought that what they offer was what I was interested in, and I know that from university, from especially the land and management module, I learnt a lot about soil science and agri-environmental policy, so it was useful for me, and yeah, I managed to get an interview. I secured the summer internship. It was initial 3-month placement, but it was extended to 6 months after, I assumed that they liked how I worked, so they extended that. Throughout those 6 months, I worked on writing 100 reports for potential woodland planting sites all across England and Wales. This was for a private poultry farm business. They wanted to offset the emissions that the chickens released. Of those reports, they wanted to take 34 of those forward, and we're currently working on 7 of those, 6 in England and 1 in Wales. There's different funding for woodland, and it's depending on the size of the planting, species, and where they are in the world, so that depends on the different capital items you can get on those. The team also helped me develop my knowledge on ELMS, which is environmental land management, and the importance of farming the environment, especially after BPS was announced to close. BPS is the basic payment scheme, which after leaving the EU, they set to close that, and essentially farmers received a lump sum every year, and that was a lot of their profit. Some farms didn't make any profit at all. It was solely that sum. So without that, a lot of them now struggle. That was when ELMS was introduced to sort of act as a replacement for this payment. It's not a complete replacement, but it helps, but I'll talk about it a bit later. I was then offered the opportunity to stay on at Brown & Co. as a graduate after completing my travels, and I returned back in September of 2024. A bit about Brown & Co. There are 11 UK offices, as you can see on this map, predominantly in the east of England and the Midlands, and we also have 3 international offices, one in Poland, one in Romania, and one in St. Lucia. I think they also want to get one in Paraguay. There's 40 partners and 293 employees, but it's all very familiar and it's not at all intimidating. History of Brown & Co. It was formed in 1993, following a management buyout from Royal Life Estates led by Charles Whittaker, who is still working in the Norwich office. It was in 1996 that when Francis and Horner & Son joined, and I think that's when things really started to change for the company. And since then, the firm has grown substantially with a further 8 mergers and acquisitions during the past 10 years. Today, Brown & Co. is a leading provider of agency, professional and consultancy services across the whole range of rural, commercial, residential property, agriculture and the environment. A little bit about what we do. So I sit in the Agricultural Business Consultancy, also known as ABC. As a wider team, we help do budgeting for different farms, succession planning. There's lots that we do. I don't do all of that. There's also architecture and planning, commercial, land agency, and residential services. So we're sort of like an estate agents. We sell farms and businesses. Within the ABC is where we sit. So this is our team. We are the only team of dedicated environmental consultants throughout Brown & Co. This is because the demand in East Anglia is much higher than anywhere else. And we help deliver different levels of environmental management to landowners and managers throughout East Anglia. We also call ourselves Team Green because it's easier to say than the consultants. What is the importance of my role? Put simply, we can't afford to farm unsustainably. If we don't take care of our land, the land will not take care of us, and we will not be able to produce food. Climate change is a huge concern to the agricultural sector, probably the same as every sector, but I see it every single day and the effects of it. You probably are all very aware, but last spring was very, very wet, 132% higher than the average, so there was a 301 millimetres total. Made it very, very difficult for farmers to get onto the land and establish their spring crops. Wet weather can lead to soil compaction, it destroys the soil structure, waterlogs, they can't get the machinery on, and their crops may just not germinate and they'll get a poor yield. This year, very different story. The UK has received just 80 millimetres of rain, and it's set to be the driest spring in over 100 years. This poses a whole different set of challenges for farmers. Many have not even established their spring crops due to this lack of rain, and I have farmers ringing me every single day talking about this. I don't know if it's an English thing. It's definitely a farmer thing. They don't want to risk losing the remaining soil in the remaining moisture in their soil, and yeah, it just poses hard. But the extremes are becoming more frequent. I think that farmers are quite resilient to this, but it doesn't make it any easier to digest. What I do as a consultant, some of the things, so the SFI, I don't know if anyone is aware, so the SFI and countryside stewardship schemes, these are government schemes that help farmers gain a bit of that income. They basically get put into a contract with the government and DEFRA for sustainably farming. So, for example, they set aside land that is probably poorer quality or harder to farm. They would set it to a flower meadow or a winter bird food plot. There's lots of different things they can do, but so we help develop those for the farmers. We then manage these schemes, and also we inspect them. I'll speak a bit more about that later. We also do woodland management, England woodland creation. If they want to plant woodland, obviously that sequesters a lot of carbon. We help people get felling licenses, environmental impact assessments, which an EIA is needed if you wish to turn a land, so say that a land has been grassland for 20 years, it will require an EIA to turn that back into arable, because there may be protected species and habitats in there that you don't want to lose. And we also help with BNG, so biodiversity net gain. This is a 30-year contract that you get put into for enhancing your land, turning it into something better. But this is a much longer contract. A typical day as an agri-environmental consultant. My workload is largely split between the office and out on farms, but every day is different as every farm is different. Despite being in the office, my role is very client-facing and has allowed me to develop my interpersonal skills. A lot of my time is spent in communication with the RPA, which is an agency of DEFRA. I also start my day by answering any queries that have come in whilst I'm not working. Farmers start their days very early. I usually get emails around 4 a.m, but I'm definitely asleep at that time. Recently, we've been working towards submitting all of our annual claims, which is related to the Countryside Stewardship Scheme. We have to commit to what the farmers are going to do for the next year, and they will get paid for doing that, and we have to make sure that it works for them and works for the environment. And we secure funding for farmers through schemes, like I just said, through the SFI and Countryside Stewardship. We also work a lot with the Environment Agency, Natural England, Norfolk Wildlife Trust, Suffolk Wildlife Trust. We're liaising between the farmers and these bodies. Hopefully you can see this map, but this is an example of a sustainable farming incentive scheme that we secured for a farmer. So they no longer wanted to traditionally farm the land, and they wanted to go full environmental. So what we do first is we go to the farm and we sit down and have a discussion about what their objectives are, what they want to do, and what will work for the wider landscape. We then come up with a plan, and like I said, this farmer no longer wanted to traditionally farm. So there's a few things here. The green on here is legume fallow, and this is a nitrogen fixing crop that improves soil structure and fertility. It's very useful. The pink is, with the lines on, is winter bird food plots, which provides food resource for birds during the colder months. Flowering plants also benefit bees and butterflies. The purple is unharvested cereal headlands, which provides a summer food source for birds and insects, and also is a habitat for the winter months. These options can be rotated around the farm so that the soil doesn't become tired and it benefits the environment as much as possible. There's also other things on here, so we manage the ponds. There's trees going in, the whole farm is getting agroforestry. And these schemes can typically range, well, they can produce the farmer anything from a few £1,000s a year to a few £100,000 a year, but one this size will probably give you about £1,000 a year, or £100,000 a year, sorry. Just a few photos of what I do when I'm not in the office. So, like I said before, we do mock inspections. And what this is we just walk around the farm. Typically, we take a whole day to do this. And we make sure that the farmer is doing what they say they do, that it's good quality, and that they're just complying with their schemes. So this photo on the left, this was a grassland. That actually wasn't what they said it was, but yeah, similar with this second one. It was a grassland with some very nice pictures from cows. And then I included this photo because this was an inspection of a winter bird food plot. But as you can see, it was very, very close to the coast, and the coast had been eroded, and the farmland had obviously gone into the sea, and I think it was very scary for me to walk there, and I can't imagine driving a tractor through there, to be honest. I recently went to a Broadland Peak Knowledge Exchange, which I am in this photo with a bunch of farmers, the Broads Authority, Suffolk Wildlife Trust, and Cranfield University. During this project, they have a study going at the moment where they are researching into the degradation of peat and the subsidence related to that, which is common on farmland, agricultural land, because especially on wetland, because when you drain wetland for agricultural purposes, it exposes the peat to oxygen and it will degrade. This results in the land subsiding, and so you can barely see it, but on the bottom right of the first photo, there's a big stick in the ground and with a camera, and they have 100 of these across the UK measuring these different levels of peat subsidence. So maybe in a year or so we'll have the results of that, but that was a really cool thing to go and see. And the cows were interested in us too. We go on farm walks. This was a client of mine, and he invited us round to just see what his scheme was looking like for him. It was nice to see, and it was a very, very pretty place actually. Lots of rhododendrons, and we saw a marsh harrier, and we heard a bittern booming. It was very nice, and I think it's important for us to go out and see the clients and form those relationships, because we're not just a face behind the computer. We like to go out and get involved and form those relationships. Something that goes a little bit beyond my job description, but I do attend, is we do machinery auctions. So we hold these every quarter, whether online or in person, and we end up selling quite a lot. Usually the hammer price is between £700 and £1 million. We've earned a hard-earned reputation for holding extremely well-attended auctions, and a lot of these auctions they come across because of a change in farming practice. So in today's economic state, some farmers don't make a lot of profit, and they are forced to change their farming practice. And this is sort of exaggerated by the volatile crop prices, the cost in fertiliser, labour. This is all to do with international relations, as well as the variability in the weather. They can just have a very, very poor crop year, and also the lack of BPS payments, which are set to finish this year. We also do have a lot of networking opportunities at Brown & Co. On the left here, we did a 12.5-mile charity walk along the Norfolk coastline, which took us a very long time. And I don't know if it was from Cromer to Wales, and I don't know if any of you have done that, but the shingle area was really hard on our legs. But that was a really nice day. There's lots of, we do cricket tournaments, we do netball tournaments with different businesses in Norwich and wider. We always have a summer and winter celebration. This one was on the Broads last year. I think everyone was enjoying a drink on that one. And yes, in October we went to Rotterdam, and this was a floating farm in the middle of the city, which was very strange, and it was all self-sufficient. They produced their own milk, cheese, butter, everything on site, and the cows just drifted down the river. Future opportunities at Brown & Co. So obviously I started as an intern, and I'm now a graduate, but there's lots of opportunities. They've now closed for 2025, but they'll open later in the year. I think it's around September for 2026. It's for all departments of Brown & Co., not just where I sit in the agricultural business consultancy team. We have ecologists, we have energy specialists, we then also have your land agencies and your commercial, and yeah.
Lightning has been detected near Robin Rig.
Yeah, we provide comprehensive in-house training, which is provided through the first year to equip you with the skills that you need. And we recently just attended one on time management and leadership, and yeah, there's lots that we get involved in. So yeah, if you're at all interested in anything that I've spoken about, we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn, there's lots of socials, and everything's posted on the website for job opportunities. But yeah, that's me. So thank you very much.
Well done to you both. In terms of, I know you haven't been there all that long, but in terms of how farmers are getting involved with some of these schemes, are they talking to you about doing this because of climate change? And if so, is there something in particular that they're more interested in doing because of that?
I think some farmers are very interested in doing it for those reasons. So the one that I showed you, he was very conscious of the environment. I think a lot of people want to go into this because it's a funding opportunity that bridges a gap for them. And even if in their mind it doesn't benefit that's not their forefront motive. I think for us, it's nice anyway to get that for them, and we know the benefit that's achieving. Yeah, I think there's lots going on. I mean, these schemes have, well, the Sustainable Farming Incentives just recently closed, which has caused a bit of chaos in the farming world, and we hope that something will be brought out soon, because it might leave a lot of people unfunded.
So is the bridging the gap part more about, so they're doing some traditional farming, and then they can be on this scheme for a little while they consider what they might do after that? And
Yeah.
do you guys kind of, does something come out of that and have a different theme when they finish?
Yeah, exactly that. So a lot of the time we go down and sit down and we figure out what works well for them, so what crop they profit from the most and what they are losing on, and we try and strategize with what we can do there. So a lot of people just want to do, if they're cropping traditionally, they'll just put in like a grass margin, or they'll use no insecticide and stuff like that. But if they find that this works more for them, then they can come out of their schemes, and we can generate them a new one. Yeah, it's so variable, and there's so many opportunities.
Yeah, I noticed, I live out in the middle of kind of rural Norfolk, and I noticed that quite a few of the farmland around my area has actually lost a lot of that, verbiage and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's to do with the scheme and contracts and then.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
know you said that there was one sort of place that it wasn't setting. Do you think we'll see more of that going forward, or is it just there's much money for that now?
Yeah, so the change in government has really stunted where this was going. The budget, they'd reached it, and I think they're looking to re-strategize. I think that whatever they come out with is going to be capped in the future. So people, or the farmers, are probably going to struggle with what they would have got in comparison. But I think where we currently stand, anything is better than nothing.
It looks like Rob's got a question
Yeah,
for you.
and we're hoping.
Looks like Rob's got a question for you.
How do I say that?
I think you should
How
just
do I
say
say
it.
that?
I think you should
Hello,
just say
can you
it.
hear me?
I can. Hello.
Hello. Sorry I'm not there in person, but fascinating to hear you both talk about your, the journey you've been on since you and I last met on a mountain somewhere
Yeah.
3 years ago. I was just thinking about, I imagine there's some undergraduates in the room, and thinking about your experience going through the course. Do you have any reflections on all the things that you learned in your environmental sciences courses and the activities you did? What would you say are the things that have been most useful, the skills, if you like, that you learned that you've been able to apply most helpfully? What are the things that you're so glad you were taught that you wouldn't want to do without?
Yeah, I think it's a bit probably obvious, but obviously when we did go to the Lake District, that was such sort of like a turning point in my mind of what I was really interested in, and I think going with everyone who was so interested in what we were doing there was really, really nice for me. In relation to what I do now, the water catchment module that I did here I really, really enjoyed it, and that was super useful. But I think just getting stuck into what we did, I mean, myself and Emma, we sort of did as much as we could, really, and I think it sort of shows. And I don't want to sound nasty when I say that, but
Definitely think it does, especially when you were talking about what you did alongside your degree. I think one of the things that comes across is that you try to do other stuff as well. You weren't just quietly going through your degree, you were trying to get involved see not every few weeks asking for more opportunity at Work West and that sort of thing. And it's no surprise to both of you being successful in terms of getting a job and establishing a career. So I think that's something that any other students who are listening online or engaged.
I think it's just like get stuck in. If you enjoy it, you get involved. I think, yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'll just sort of finish off the talk here, basically. Hopefully everyone can hear me. But yeah, thank you for watching. Whoever's watched online, I sort of echo all the sentiments. I hope you've all found it really interesting. I've found it really interesting, to be honest, as well. Even from a perspective of, being working for a few years as well, in a different sort of industry-ish. This is more for anyone that's in the room, but there's basically a piece of paper around that you put your postcode on and basically say how you got here. It's for the net zero mission for RMETs, basically. So that would be good if we could fill that all in. And then again, this will be for the next academic year now. So if anyone's got any sort of future talks you want us to do, and you know, just give us an email. You can even message us on LinkedIn. We've got a Facebook page. So just, yeah, let us know. So the next talk we've got, this isn't actually on the website yet, but it's basically a talk with Brian Goldin. He's going to talk to us about forecasting summer thunderstorms. So I suppose it'll be a nice way to almost recap the season we would have just had if it's an active season or not. But yeah, that should be really good. We'll probably do that in person and online, I'd imagine. But yeah, it'd be good to see as many people here as possible, really. Just you can get to talk to him and meet him. He knows a lot of people, so it'd be good to speak to him. But yeah, I think that is pretty much everything from us.